So some of our viewers might be wondering what was going on with that little insert. So we're trying something new. So occasionally when we do link between the presenters, we'll do that little insert. Let us know what you think. It's always nice getting feedback and letting us know how the viewers feel. We're still sitting with Tingana. He's just moved down the other side of the dam wall from where he was drinking, and he's now just lying down, resting. It's in a bit of shade there, and the temperature has cooled down quite a bit. It's still very warm and very muggy, but much cooler than it was earlier today. I mean, 36 degrees earlier was quite hot. Just going to actually reposition a little bit because there is another vehicle coming. I just want to make sure there is space for them. So let me just move a little bit forward down to here, and then they should be able to position anywhere they like. And that's one of the things as a guide you need to always remember is positioning of a vehicle is very important, especially when you've got photographic guests on the vehicle that want to get a good photo. But for anyone, you don't want to be sitting looking at an awkward angle, and you also need to take in consideration the other vehicles that are around so that everybody can get a view when they are out here. And we've got a lovely view, and so have the other guests. So I do think that this male leopard would possibly rest here for quite some time now after that long drink of water he had. There's no need for him to move. Wait till it cools down a little bit and then probably move around during the course of the evening. And Kim, all the way from Florida, good afternoon to you, Kim. You wanted to know, what did I call that loose skin or flap under the neck of the leopard? It is called a dewlap. And now my spelling, and maybe the ladies in the FC can help me with the spelling, but I think it's D-U-L-A-P, the dewlap. Brian, do you know? I think so. I've never had to write dewlap. So, let me see. I think that's the correct spelling. And what these big males get it. You don't really see it on females or younger leopards. The older males do get it, and I think it serves as a way of protection around the neck, the looser skin, if they do get into any fights with one another, because leopards can be very territorial, and they do occasionally get into aggressive fights with one another. So that looser skin around the neck can protect the throat and obviously the head, but mainly the throat area, because if they do bite one another around there, they don't want to puncture anything vital. So that is probably the main purpose of that dewlap. And I understand that our viewers are having mixed reactions to that little insert that we put in there. It's good. Well, let's see, and we'll try work out what works and what doesn't. But don't panic, it wasn't the end of the show. It was just a quick insert changing between presenters. It really is spectacular to be able to sit and view a big male leopard like this. And the nice thing is some of the other people have all been here and viewed this leopard and moved on, because it has been quite hot. So for some guests to sit out in the heat, it's not that comfortable. So they've seen a leopard and they've moved on to see what else they can find, which is great for us, because then we have the opportunity to spend a bit more time here and sit with the leopard now and see what he gets up to. We obviously hardened bushgoers, we don't mind the heat. Brian disagrees with me, I think.
Not when you get, not if you parked in the heat all day.
Yeah.
Presenter.
I've learned that to keep the cameraman happy, I need to park the vehicle in the shade as much as possible. Otherwise, I get shouted at. Don't forget to some of our new viewers, if you've just joined us, send questions at hashtag Safari Live via Twitter. Otherwise, you can email us questions at WildEarthTV. And we love hearing from all of you and getting your questions and comments. Lindsay, you'd like to know if you wanted to come on safari in Southern Africa, what the best time of year is. Well, the coolest time. You asked what the coolest time of year would be. So anywhere from about May onwards, I would say, it starts cooling down quite a bit. But May, June, July are usually our winter months, especially June and July. It gets quite chilly and quite cold. So anywhere between May and August is usually a very nice time of year if you prefer the cooler conditions. The bird life does change because a lot of birds do migrate for the winter. So you're not going to see as many birds. There are still beautiful birds around. There are not as many bugs around. So if you don't like bugs, it's also an ideal time of year because it is so much colder and also not as much rain. We get very little rain in winter, and that's why it's our drier season. So a lot of people do enjoy that time of year for safari. So, and like I say, if you do enjoy the cooler temperatures, that would be the best. I always say, guests ask me all the time, the best time of year to come on a safari. I really like April and May, just because it's that almost a secret season, moving out of summer, you're going through autumn and into winter. Down here in the southern hemisphere, and the temperature does start dropping. It's much cooler. The bush is still green because we are moving out of summer, so you do still get wonderful lush trees and that around before you start moving straight into winter, where everything does start going brown and yellow, but that's also beautiful colors. But I do enjoy April, May. Those are my favorite months of the year. A lot of people also really enjoy August and September. So just coming out of the winter, it's not too cold, the temperatures are warming up. The mornings and the evenings are a lot cooler, which is nice, but not too cold. The days are beautiful, kind of mid-20s, so around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. Crystal, you wanted to know, can other leopards sense if there's another leopard around them? Crystal, these animals do rely so much on their sense of smell and their hearing, and especially their sense of smell. They can pick up the scent of another leopard very easily, I think. And look, if there was another leopard that just came into the territory and surprised this male, it could get a fright. It could be surprised, but in my experience, seeing male leopards moving around, they are aware of other leopards being in their territory, and they do pick up on the scent and the smell and probably hear them. Leopards do territorial calling, and usually when they get into an area, and especially these male leopards, if they do come across one another, there's quite a show. And usually what happens is they try and basically intimidate the other leopard, and the reason for that is these animals are solitary, so they try not to get injured, because if they do get injured, they're unable to hunt for themselves. So it is important that they avoid confrontation at all costs. So often what they'll do is they'll walk up and down in a line next to one another, and they'll growl and snarl and bare their teeth. They salivate quite a lot, and all of that is to intimidate the other leopard. And by doing that, they will hopefully push the other one away. So they size each other up a little bit, and perhaps they will then leave not having fought with one another. However, it does happen where they do end up fighting, and these males will tackle each other and fight and scratch and bite, and that can get very violent. But then usually a winner is sorted out very quickly, or defined very quickly, and then they'll split up, and the winner will be able to keep his territory and the other one will move off. So it does happen, but generally with leopards they try and avoid confrontation. Now, Djuma, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Djuma would like to know, do the leopards and lions smell similar? Djuma, okay, that's what Lou is saying. And you would like to know, do leopards and lions smell the same or similar? And no, I don't think they do. The reason I say that is, look, I think if you had to get down and smell cats, a cat that was very close by, if you got close enough, they probably would smell slightly similar. But I do believe they've got a very different scent. And the interesting thing, and the best way to describe it or give you an example, is with these leopards. When these male leopards move around and scent mark, and some of you might laugh at me, but I'm being completely serious. When they scent mark, the scent does smell a little bit like popcorn. And you can often pick up on the smell very clearly if you are following a leopard and they stop and they scent mark, spray urine on a bush. If you drive past, you do get a popcorn smell. That's the best way to describe it.
It's only popcorn, buttered popcorn.
Buttered popcorn. Brian says buttered popcorn. Right, yes, the best kind. So, but it definitely does smell like that, which is very interesting. Lion scent does not smell like that, and I have smelt bushes after lions have passed through. It's a little bit, I don't know how you could describe that. I would say a typical urine smell, perhaps, slightly acidic. But harder to describe the lion scent, but the leopard scent definitely. So they do smell different. They and I think that's also how they would recognize that there's probably another predator in the area, is by the scent. Excuse me, I just need another sip of water. Sure, the water gets very warm out here very quickly. It's like drinking tea now. Now there's an African cuckoo calling, everyone, and I know you all enjoy my bird calls. I'm not sure if you can hear it. It sounds similar to the African hoopoo, but it does a boop 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 boop, and you can hear it in the distance. My bird calls aren't great, but there's an African cuckoo that is calling in a constant call in the distance. Look at that sunset, everyone. Beautiful silhouette of those trees. So this is so nice. There's actually a slight breeze which has just picked up that we can feel at the moment, which is always welcome. Cool us down a little bit. And it's so wonderful and spectacular to still be able to sit with this male leopard. He hasn't moved off too far, and we've been lucky. We spent most of the afternoon with him. I mean, we did have to walk through this drainage line looking for him a little bit earlier, and we were fortunate that we thought, remember we said we thought he'd come down to the water, and then he was lying very close to the water on that termite mound, so it was a bit easier to find him than I anticipated. I thought he'd be down in a thick drainage line, possibly further down off to our left. It does get a lot thicker, but luckily he stayed at the water, went and had a long drink, and now is just resting. You can actually see the size of those paws. Very large paws on these male leopards, and they're incredibly powerful animals. I've seen these male leopards hoist kills like a full-grown Impala ram up into a tree, which is probably about 50 or 60 kilograms. So what's that, 140 pounds, I think, or somewhere around there, which is amazing. 120, 140 pounds. Hoist right up into a tree. That Anderson male that we spoke about earlier, that big male leopard, I saw him a few months ago, and he actually hoisted a young buffalo calf into a tree, which was incredible. I mean, just to give you an idea of the size of that leopard and how powerful he is to hoist a young buffalo calf. I do believe that pound for pound, these are probably the most powerful predators that we have here. Even though lions are incredibly strong and powerful, but lions are much bigger than leopards. A big male lion can weigh up to 200, maybe 220 kilograms, roughly around 450 to 500 pounds. So much, much larger, and obviously because they are much larger, they are more powerful, but I think pound for pound, leopard must be one of the most powerful predators we have. Well, definitely in the cat family. I might sit here for a little bit longer, and while we do that, I wonder what James has been up to. Let's head over to James and see what he's doing and what he's got. And don't forget, ask James what belt he made it to in his martial arts. He loves that question.
There are some Nyala, everybody, and Byron is an idiot. I want you to tell him that next time. Oh, thank you, David. That was very nice clicking. Why have we come to see me so soon?
I just thought you wanted to give comments on
Byron.
Byron.
Oh, comment on Byron, yes. Byron is incessantly asked me how many belts I got in my very brief foray into martial arts, and the big joke, of course, is that we didn't get belts at all, and I don't know why he finds that so funny. It irritates me every time he does it, and that's why he keeps doing it, I suppose. Anyway, there we are, some Nyala. We came here, everyone, because we heard some buffalo going, "Bleh," but we were around here, and we've been with the monkeys. We're not far from the monkeys now, and everything else looks very chilled. So I think it's unlikely that the buffalo are being killed. I think it's much more likely that they probably had a little spat about who should get the last piece of long grass under a bush. But look how the light has softened, everyone. And we have gorgeous Nyalas. And shortly it's definitely going to be time to head towards the north to see if we can't find the Nkuhuma Pride again just before they get mobile. Round about sunset we want to try and find them. It's just too stunning, everyone. It's too gorgeous to be out here. I could have sat with those monkeys in that drainage line with some cup of tea and just absorbed the atmosphere all afternoon. Oh, this is why I live here, you see. Just to suck in this atmosphere. Breathe it in, absorb it, smell it, hear it, see it, feel it, taste it sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't taste so good. Sometimes it tastes bad. Good. Right, route. I think let's go up Twin Dams Road. That takes us back to Leadwood, which is towards where, towards Mumba Road, which is where we sort of went before. So let's go up Twin Dams, see if we can find anything there. Maybe we misheard where that buffalo was coming from, but I'm pretty sure it was in here somewhere. And it's quite, I mean, it's a very long way from where we had the Nkuhumas this morning. And I just don't think that on a day as blindingly hot as it was today, I don't think they would have moved. So that is where we'll go. I believe Tingana is finding the heat a little bit overwhelming. He's had a drink and he's now lying on the ground, as Louise describes him, like he's dead. Now, Djuma, you're wondering how big the reserve is. The reserve, Djuma, is part of 8.5 million acres, or 3.5 million hectares. That's the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Of that, the Kruger National Park makes up 2.2 million hectares, or about 4.5 million acres. And then we are on the western fringes of it, and our traversing area is about 10,000 acres, or 2,500 hectares. Is that correct? No, 3,500 hectares, that's correct. So that's quite a lot, and it's certainly big enough for us to encompass the pride territories of 1.5 lion prides, the Birmingham boys, our wonderful male lions, 2 or 3 female leopards and their cubs. So there's lots in this magnificent area. I think one more foray up the drainage here, just for in case. Alright, James Richard, while we drive up this drainage line, I will tell you the story of There He Is There. Now everybody, I don't know how many of you know this, but Byron, when he began his guiding career, I was in fact his trainer. Now I must at this point categorically say that Byron is definitely one of the most gifted, if not the most gifted natural guides I've ever guided. So I taught him very little, except one thing I did try and impart to him was a slightly better grasp of the English language. And one of the things we did was we'd go out, there were 6 of us training, or it was me and 6 trainees, and we'd go and look at birds and mammals, and we'd try and acquire some knowledge. And one of the things you had to do, of course, is learn bird calls. And one of the bird calls is that of the Starling's wren warbler. And the Starling's wren warbler sounds as follows. It goes tick-a-tick, 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 or anyway, please ask Byron to make that call for you. You'll laugh until next week. But we heard this bird one day down south of not very far where we are now, and we heard the call of the Starling's wren warbler. Now, none of the new guides had seen the Starling's wren warbler before, so they were very excited about the possibility of perhaps seeing it again. And so we moved around and we were looking, and we heard it calling tick-a-tick, 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 and then it would fly away, and we'd hear another tree going tick-a-tick, tick-a-tick, tick-a-tick. And Byron, sitting with his binoculars to his eyes, eventually pointed and said, "There's he there!" So I looked at him, and all the other trainees looked at him, and I said, "What did you just say?" He said, "There's he there!" So I said, "Do you mean there he is over there? Is that what you're trying to say?" And Byron said, "Yeah, but there's he there." Byron, of course, is from the south of Johannesburg, where English has morphed into something that it was never meant to be. And so I had to explain to him that if he had guests from around the world, although he was very friendly, personable, had a fairly good amount of knowledge, to say something like, "There's he there," to somebody from, well, I don't know, America, someone from England, someone from Spain, and then wouldn't know what on earth he was talking about. So that is the story, James Richard, of There's He There. And every time I hear that bird, tick-a-tick, 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 that's what I think of. There's he there. Right, we are going to head up now towards where the Nkuhumas were. I know that they were not found earlier this afternoon. I think somebody gave a perfunctory sort of drive through the area to see if they could find them. There is a beautiful crested barbet, David, perfectly framed in the setting sun. Wonderful. He hasn't cleaned his beak. He's got a caterpillar. So, that's actually quite interesting because a crested barbet is supposed to be, that is disgusting, is supposed to be a frugivore. In other words, a fruit-eating bird. That particular one will be a frugivore, but obviously around here, you've seen, I'm sure, if you've been watching for any length of time, there is not a great deal in the way of fruit out here. So a frugivore must make do with other things like caterpillars. David, would you eat a caterpillar? Yes, have you eaten one? No, I haven't either. I remember, did your peers used to bring silkworms to school? Yes. My peers also used to bring silkworm to school. And then some sort of rebellious fellows or disgustingly and psychotically disturbed fellows would then go and eat their silkworms, which of course put me off for life. That's another story like the one of There's He There. Yes, we had a wonderful time we did down in the south during that 3-month period where Byron and 5 others and I spent 3 months every day driving around morning and night, laughing our heads off and learning a great deal at the same time. It was wonderful. Here are some impalas. We haven't done an impala stop today, or we have sort of, but not perhaps sufficiently. Ooh. So while we look at these, also, the Birchall starling up top there, see the one there? It just dropped something onto the floor, and I'm interested because it looked a little bit like a snail. Maybe it was a fruit, I don't know. But of course we do know of birds that will drop things in order to break them. But I don't think that's what was going on there. Marvellous. Let's just continue. Hornbill. Well spotted, David. Now, the hornbills at this time of the day like to have an ant bath or eat some ants. He's going to eat a grasshopper, not an ant. And they like to kind of lie in the sand over an ant nest, and the ants go crawling up onto the feathers, and the formic acid helps clean off parasites. It's a rather clever thing, and then they eat the ants off their feathers. It's a bit like eating dishwashing liquid, I suppose. I'm glad we don't have to do that as well. There we are. Hello, James Bear, PhD Emeritus. I guess that means that you were at the university for some time. James Bear, while we look at that, what could only be described as mangy Nyala, and it does have mange, I can see that, but it doesn't seem to be doing too badly. You're wondering about crows and why we've never shown you crows. We have once or twice, and we do get them in this area from time to time. The pied crow is the most obvious one, but they're not common at all. They are common in South Africa, but just not in the game reserve areas. Certainly if you go into the community areas, you will find pied crow very often. And yes, we do, as you do in the States, call them a murder of crows. Ooh. There, just up here, right up here, Dave. It's a cuckoo, everybody. And I think it's the Jacobian cuckoo. It's Jacobian or striped? It is Jacobian. Striped hang on a second. Striped, also known as Varroes. No, not Varroes, Levaillants. I thought I heard another buffalo call, but I didn't. I'm going to carry on. They, of course, brood parasites. I don't remember what they parasitize. I'm going to have to look it up. Every year I have to look it up. I can't remember from year to year. By the end of the summer season, I will know exactly what the birds parasitize. Right, Jacobian. They are brood parasites. Oh gosh, that was close. Never be on your phone while driving, everyone. Bulbuls, largely bulbuls and common fiscal, which we don't get here. So bulbuls. Now, Byron is ready to give you an update. I'm not sure what he's doing, what he's looking at. Let's go and find out. There's he there.
So Tingana was still lying down and resting, everyone. We decided we'd just take a bit of a drive, having a look around to see if we can't find anything else to show you. We will head back to him and see what he does get up to. It's also nice to have a bit of a breeze. It's still very, very hot and muggy. Hang on, there's a cuckoo. Where is it? Oh, these brakes. Can you see him, Brian? I just heard him, everyone. I'm trying to look for him. Oh, no, I can't see him. Do you see a woodpecker? Oh, look at that, everyone. A woodpecker. Oh, wonderful. Now, let me just see. That looks like it is a bearded woodpecker. Let me just double check for you in my book. Some of these woodpeckers do look fairly similar. Let me have a quick look here. There we go. And I think I'm right. It is indeed a bearded woodpecker. Oh, wonderful. So, and I'll show you shortly, but let's just watch that woodpecker for a while. Watch him knocking about, looking for some food, insects. Amazing little birds, aren't they? Well spotted, Brian, and I can't see that. I don't know where that cuckoo went to. Heard him, but it disappeared. But let's have a look just over here. This is the bearded woodpecker, the one that we just saw, and you could very clearly see those black markings on the side of the face and on the throat. So quite easy to identify. Although some of the species, and I'll show you just on the other page, but they've all got this reddish head, and if I just page back one, you'll see. Look how they've all got some form of marking around the throat area, and all have a bit of red on the head. The other one, the golden-tailed woodpecker, the females have got a bit of black under the throat, but also those white specks. So you should be able to see that if you look carefully. But all have a bit of red on the head. Look at that, they all look so similar, don't they? So you do have to look for specific little things, and distribution will help you identify these woodpeckers. But that was a bearded woodpecker, a wonderful bird to see. Maureen from the United Kingdom, you wanted to know what the maximum temperature is that we would stay out in the sun on a safari. And sure, Maureen, some areas it can get up to 45, 48 degrees Celsius, which is about 120 Fahrenheit, I think. So that's very, very hot. And also the other thing is it all depends on the guests. So if the guests say, listen, Byron, it's a bit too hot this afternoon. What do you recommend? And I might say, why don't we wait a little bit and go out a little bit later when the temperature starts cooling down, and we can possibly stay out a little bit longer on our evening safari. Because at the end of the day, we are here to see the animals, and you don't want to miss out on game drives or the safari. So we try and manage it that, and I certainly do with my guests, that if some of them don't want to get up too early in the morning, one morning we could possibly go out a bit later. There goes a cuckoo, just flew past us. It looked like a cuckoo. It's just sat up at the top there, Brian. Those branches at the back, you got it? It is a Levaillant. A Levaillants cuckoo, everyone. There it is. Now, James showed you the Jacobian cuckoo with the black and white looks almost identical. But if you look closely, see the streaking on the throat. This used to be known as the striped cuckoo. It is now known as the Levaillants cuckoo. Levaillants. Beautiful cuckoos. Wow, so we've been lucky. And I think this may have been the cuckoo that we heard earlier. It sounded like a Levaillants cuckoo. So that's another cuckoo to add to your list. Those of our viewers who are keen birders, if you haven't seen this one yet, we've been lucky. We've been seeing a lot of cuckoos between all the presenters while we've been out. From African cuckoo, we saw the great spotted cuckoo the other day, the Levaillants cuckoo, Jacobian cuckoo, red-chested cuckoo, and the Diedrich's cuckoo. So that's quite a number of cuckoo species, and there are still more to find. Classes cuckoo is another one we need to see. And there it goes, off it goes. Wonderful. So that was really nice surprise. And that's what I said, just driving around like this is great, and you bump into little things. You get to see these wonderful birds like that cuckoo, the cuckoo and the woodpecker, the bearded woodpecker. A little bit of a nice cool breeze while we're driving around. Okay, James is with the lions, which is great. So head over to James. We're going to do that little insert again, everybody, so don't worry, it's not the end of the show, as I said. And let's head over to James.
Oh, wasn't that a traumatic insert, everybody? I hope that you're all okay. Don't worry, we're with the lions, and they're fast asleep. Well, most of them. The one thing that I did want you to look at, especially, was the fact, or just see if you noticed, because I think that this morning I noticed that they are scratching less. I think that the mange, and I'm obviously going out on a limb here, is starting to have, I think they've got over the top with the worst of it. I think they're starting to conquer it. And if we look at a wonderful cub that will be known henceforth by this name, Flip Flop, there you can see he has scratched his ear so much that I think the cartilage is broken, and I think that it'll probably not recover. But you can see that he is not, it's a lioness, she is not scratching herself at all anymore. There are one or two that are still having a little bit of a scratch and a bite here and there. But remember, about a week ago, when we found them not far from here, well, they haven't been far from here for about 2 years now, but just down through the drainage, there's a little pan, and we saw the wood sandpiper. They were sitting, crushing against trees. They were scratching and biting, and they were having a horrible time. There's not one cub here right now that is, well, they're biting their mothers, but they're not scratching at all. And I think that means that they have beaten this mange. So maybe I'm speaking too soon, but let's hope that that is the case, and that their fur and the ear of little Flip Flop starts to recover. Isn't that good news? And for those of you who are wondering who gave that lioness the stupid name that is Flip-Flop, and the fact that henceforth, despite its obvious magnificence as one of the great cats of Africa, it will forever be known by the ridiculous name of Flip-Flop, we have Byron to thank. He wanted me to remind you that it was he who came up with the name. So there I have reminded you. That is Byron's fault. Oh, that's a wonderful shot of the foot there, David. Well done. Good foot shot. Possibly the best I've seen. But even little Flip-Flop, who looked like the worst affected by the mange, is not scratching right now. Oh, sweet. Look at her. That's so sweet. And she has got mange on her face, but she's not scratching. And she's sleeping quite peacefully. I think this is brilliant news. And then and there's the great attempt to suckle from a mother who's getting very sick of having to produce milk at this stage. James, you wondering if I think the soil holds the spores of mange. James, spores, you mean a bit like anthrax? No, anthrax is a fungus, and that's why it has spores, and that's why they sit in the ground. Mange is caused by mites, and mites are little arachnids, if I'm not much mistaken, minuscule microscopic mites, or arachnids that get into the skin. And so, no, they're definitely not, they don't breed by means of spores. Their eggs, I suppose, yes, indeed, their eggs could be dormant in the soil, perhaps, and perhaps they only come out when it's dry, much the same as anthrax does. So that's possible. Affirmative. I'm just answering on the game drive. Somebody's trying to get into the sighting. So that's my answer there. Yeah, why not? The eggs may well get stuck in the soil. It certainly would be a good explanation for why it is that mange has come out coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, during the height of a very dry year. And plenty of ticks in that ear, aren't there? He's going to need some oxpecker attention. But again, I think even less mange than there was. There's a little bit of scratching going on. So let's just keep watching and see if the others start as well. I mean, that lion's basically eating its heel off. So still itchy. But I think you'll all agree with me that there's definitely much less of the scratching than there has been. Michael, you're interested in which one of the litters Flip-Flop comes from. You say is she one of the teddy cubs? Yes, I think she is. I think she is a teddy cub. There she is. Unless she's one of the others. No, I'm pretty sure she's a teddy. Yeah, I think she's a teddy. Oh, look. That's very sweet. I've just heard something on the radio, everybody. That's why I'm laughing while we look at that. And I shall share it with you because, well, you know, you can keep a secret. One of the rangers who should remain nameless just asked another ranger who shall also remain nameless whether or not he'd brought his guests to the lions, to which he replied in a language called Fanagalore, which is not a language at all, but anyway, that's another time for another discussion for another time. He said, no, I didn't take them to the lions because they're calling the animals. They think the animals are dogs, so he's going to take them for a drink instead. He's not going to show them the lions. Now, that's a lesson to everybody. If you come out here, of course, obviously, being Wild Earth viewers, you would never think to click your fingers or whistle at animals so that they looked at your camera. I have to admit I have done it once or twice myself, but it is very non-new. I wouldn't eat that ear. I mean, if you're going to get mange, that's where you're going to get it from. Cat, you've noticed that the cubs here are darker than the mothers. They are. And you say, will they get lighter as they get older? Yes, they definitely will. But if you look at the flanks of the one on her back there, Dave, you don't mind, the one who's just about to sit up. No, the adult. There we go. Those flanks are pretty much the same colour. And so I think there is a certain amount of variation. But certainly they are a little bit darker, more mustard coloured, I suppose, than the rest of the adults are. There's an elephant somewhere in this bush. I can hear 3 or 4 of them actually moving. And every so often you'll hear a branch breaking. And that's what that is. Does everyone agree with me that there's much less scratching going on? Or has this happened before where we've come to the site and although we know that they are riddled with the disease, they haven't been scratching? Maybe also the moisture in the air has meant that A, they haven't been reinfected, and B, it might just be affecting. So I think we're looking good here for the overcoming of the mange story by the Nkuhuma Pride, which, of course, they're uptown lions, you know. They're not like the Styx Pride from the wrong side of the tracks. These chaps are from a fairly exclusive part of town. You'd expect their medical care and insurance to take care of them, wouldn't you, David? And indeed it seems to have. That lioness is doing her yoga before going off on hunting. Lindsay, yes, the answer to your question is a big fat affirmative. Can humans get mange? They can, but we don't call it mange. We call it scabies. I think you've probably heard of scabies. It's a dreadful mite skin disease, and I imagine for us probably these days relatively easy to treat, but it's the same thing. It's called sarcoptic mange, basically, or scabies in human beings, and it's caused by a mite. It gets into your skin and creates tremendously itchy patches. Not had it myself. I don't think I've met anybody who's had scabies. David, have you had scabies before? No, good. Phew. There the lioness doing the downward dog in full view of the other one. Right, Byron, astonishingly, is back with the male leopard. Let's go and find out how that's going. I'm going to stay here and see if these chaps don't get up.
Why astonishingly, James? So this leopard has not moved, everybody. He's still relaxing and resting just down in this little bit of a drainage line away from the dam. And fortunately for us, he's lying out in the open. So we've got a wonderful view of him now. We just changed positions. We're actually up on the dam wall at the moment looking down at him. And as you can see, we're right here. So it's what I mean. I do believe because it's so hot that's why this leopard hasn't decided to move. He's comfortable lying down there, probably just trying to wait till it cools down before he does move. And I was getting the updates that James was just mocking me slightly. He gets quite upset when I ask him what belt he is in his or that he got to in his martial arts. And then I understand he told you about the story where, well, he claims I said, there's he there, but I didn't. And we were training, and I think it was just excitement and spotting a bird and saying, there it is over there. But I said it so quickly that he then, and James has always mocked me for being from the south of Johannesburg, which is not that bad, a beautiful area. And I went to school right next door to James. I think there's a bit of rivalry there because the two very good schools in Johannesburg, and they're right next door to one another. So he gives me a hard time from being from that school, and I give him a hard time from being from the school that he is from. But I think that's why we get along so well. Denise, you wanted to know if leopards are endangered. No, they are not. Denise, to be honest, I've read and tried to find out exactly how many there are within the greater Kruger. It's very difficult to tell because you don't see the leopards as much as you see lions and that, but there are plenty of leopards around this area, this part of South Africa, but not just here. Throughout South Africa, there are leopards just about everywhere, and the reason for that is these cats adapt so well to different areas, different terrain. They're very elusive, they're excellent hunters, and they can hunt animals. Well, they've got a large range of food that they will hunt, so anywhere from snakes and fish that they'll fish out of rivers or waterholes, all the way up to large antelope like kudu, and even young eland, which is the largest antelope in Africa. So these leopards are incredible animals, and the way they are able to adapt to their surroundings and to the areas that they live in is incredible, and that is why they do occur all over South Africa especially, but also Southern Africa. There's a lot of leopards all over there, not endangered at all. It's just we don't really know how many there are because it is so difficult to keep track of these leopards, especially when they don't want to be seen. You are not going to find them. I told you earlier, when I was tracking Tingana, I had tracked a male leopard not too long ago, in August. I was tracking a male leopard and literally walked past a thicket 2 meters from me, and he was lying in there, and we didn't know because it was so thick, and he didn't move, he didn't make a sound. He lay in there dead still, and we walked past 3 or 4 times. Eventually we managed to spot just his tail sticking out a little bit. So they are incredibly elusive. They're very intelligent cats, and that is why I think one of the reasons is that they are found throughout the country, not just in South Africa, but also throughout the continent of Africa. All these leopards. And then on other continents like South America, you've got the jaguar, which is basically a big leopard. And those jaguars get to the size of about a female lion. So you can imagine a large male jaguar weighing between 120 and 140 kilograms, somewhere around there. I think they can get up to 160 if I'm not mistaken. Some of my friends have been over and seen jaguars. I haven't been there yet. But then in India, you've got leopards in India too, and you've got snow leopards, and you've got clouded leopards. So many different species of leopards. But within Africa, these leopards adapt very well to whichever terrain they are found in, and we do get them all over the continent. Marie, you want to know why the leopards don't interact with their offspring like lions do. So, Marie, one of the main reasons is because leopards are solitary. That is the niche that they fulfill within nature. And the niche is the role, it basically is the role that these animals play within nature. So the leopards are solitary animals. They move around by themselves, they hunt for themselves, and that is what makes leopards successful. They are not pride animals like the lions that are in large groups or in prides. They're not pack animals like wild dogs. So one of the reasons is purely that. The females will raise the cubs up to about 1.5 years on average. Generally that's how long cubs will stay with the adult females. It may be even sooner than that before they get pushed off, maybe 1 year, but usually it's 1.5 years. The males have absolutely nothing to do with raising of the cubs. All they are there for is there to mate with the females and then basically move on and possibly mate with another female, but they do not have anything to do with raising the cubs. However, because females that mate with the males are usually within their territory, the males may come across those cubs at times, but then they'll recognize the female by the scent. They know they've mated with them and probably recognize the cubs as their own, also based on scent, and they tolerate them, but they won't necessarily interact with them for very long. I have seen male leopards interact with their offspring, though. It does happen, but it might be for perhaps a day or two, and then they move on again. They don't stay together because they are solitary animals. So I think that's probably the main reason. All right, everyone. We've spent such a wonderful afternoon with Tingana. It's been fantastic to see him, from finding him earlier at the waterhole to seeing him drinking and now resting. I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave him now, give him his space, let him move around during the course of the evening. He may rest here for quite some time still. So we're going to move around and see what else we can find. And while we do that, let's head back to James and the lions and see what they're up to.
They are not doing much except sort of getting toward the preliminary stages of bonding, which often precipitates a hunt. Of course, the cubs won't hunt. They'll be left here. Now, I'm not going to put a light on them because the cubs are too young at this stage for us to light up. I might put a gentle floodlight on them as it gets very dark, but I'm not going to put a spotlight on them. And we'll see what happens then. But these young females may go off hunting. But for them to take down another buffalo, they are, of course, now without two of their cohorts. So it's a little bit difficult, I think, for them to take down something the size of a buffalo. It's not impossible, given the weakness of the buffalo. I mean, one of them walked into the water and dropped dead today, so it's not impossible that they can get hold of one. But let's see. I think we'll stay with them for the rest of the drive and see if they don't get up and do something useful. I'll probably head off into the drainage, which will require some serious driving, and the elephant slowly grows in closer and closer to us. The lions paying no attention because they can hear exactly where the trees are breaking. And it's just so wonderful to watch the affection that's taking place here. It's now getting quite dark. I mean, the picture you're seeing, as I've said to you before, is certainly making it brighter than it actually looks here. And there's just little grunting, little bits of sort of growling, if you like, friendly growling. As the cubs talk to the mothers, and the mothers talk to the cubs. And then if you can try, Davey, sorry, to go into the other group there, it looks like the two females bonding with each other. And Mind Warp, you reckon that the Nkuhumas have never scratched anything like as much as the sticks did. So that's good news. So they obviously have been fighting the disease much more effectively. And certainly, I mean, those sticks cubs died. They were hairless, basically. And I think it did progress a lot more quickly than the disease has here. Sounds of the night starting up. Heard the call of the litany bird, the fiery-necked nightjar going, "Good Lord, deliver us! Good Lord, deliver us!" It's an appropriate Sunday song, really, isn't it, David? Yes. And they're just loving this tickling from the mum. Could be an aunt. Hello, Anne. You're in Canada and you're a new viewer, and it's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you very much for getting hold of us, and thank you for watching. You say, if they did get mange badly, would we intervene? No, it's as you had sort of surmised at the end of your question. We'd try and let nature take its course. It seems to be the best way to go. Certainly, it will clear out any lack of resistance to the disease. And that's natural selection taking place. All right, I'm going to flick on a little bit of light now, Dave. There we go. A gentle floodlight. Well, it's not that gentle, but they're not trying to move, and we certainly wouldn't put it onto the cubs if the lionesses were not here. That's much better, isn't it, David? And there are elephants slowly making their way here. So, and there has been a huge amount of disease. There has been a huge amount of discussion as to whether or not they should be helped, and certainly many of our viewers were of the opinion that yes, they should be helped. But one of the arguments against that, of course, is that, well, do we not help the Nyala? Do we help the Impala? And obviously we don't, because we couldn't possibly do all of that. And the other thing to say is, yes, of course, lions are, as a whole, as a species, probably fairly heavily endangered, or certainly threatened. But in the Kruger area, the lion population is very healthy. And therefore, it's much better to try and let nature take its course, because by letting nature take its course, of course, the population will become stronger. Those Styx cubs, 8 of them, all dead now. The next lot that come along may well be able to fight the disease off, and they've already come along. One of the lionesses has already given birth, and that means, of course, that there could easily be a situation. Well, I mean, it was very quick. It was very fast that the Pride made more cubs. The lionesses have been unaffected, and so I think it's made the lion population that much more healthy, actually more resilient. And that is what you need when you have a situation where animals are threatened. I think it's another classic example of our real desire to help. Certainly when I first saw those Styx cubs, I thought, oh, we have to help. And then the arguments for not doing it were just a lot stronger, I think, and I'm really glad we didn't, because so often when we get involved as human beings, we make a big fat mess. Look at that. Imagine playing around teeth and jaws like that. Hello, Rose. It was obviously traumatic when those Styx cubs died, and you want to know if the Pride just left them and when they died. I'm not sure exactly when they died. They died seemingly while I was on leave, so I wasn't here. And you want to know if the Pride left them for vulture food or if they buried them. Rose, they most certainly didn't bury them. They're not big buriers of their dead lions. They often actually eat their own cubs. So it's quite possible that they ate them, which is, you see, in some ways, I guess people would think, oh, that's really distasteful. Yes, of course, as for human beings it is. But it's a way of making sure that the nutrients in the system don't get wasted. I don't know if that's what happened, but it certainly has happened many times. Lions and leopards both do it. And so I think what would have happened is that I suspect, just eventually the 3 little ones, or all of the little ones, would have been unable to keep up with the adults, and they would have been left to starve. Basically, that's what would have happened, I'm afraid. And I know that seems harsh, it seems horrible, and it would be if they were human beings, but they're not, they're lions. And that's the best way for their population to survive. It's the best way for them to get through life, and it's how they've evolved over millions of years, and because of that, that's the most successful strategy for the lions. Now, as soon as this lioness gets up, we'll move, but I don't want to just yet. I just want to spend as much time as we can with the cubs, and then we'll head off. Clearly, some of the cubs have gone with the other lionesses. Can you see them, Dave? No, I can see them moving off down towards the south. The cubs will eventually be left under a bush somewhere, or in the shadows, where they will wait for the night, while the others, the lionesses, go off hunting. They look to me almost certain to hunt. There's an elephant getting very cross, somewhere not too far from here. Could be that the lioness and the Birmingham boy who were missing this morning, or the 2 lionesses and the Birmingham boys, are not too far from here. Maybe the elephants have just discovered them. Okay, let's try and turn around. It's going to be a little bit awkward in here. James, I think questions, I don't know the exact answer, but I'm going to say that it's a variable answer. That's my way of A, hedging my bets, and B, hopefully giving you some kind of idea. You say, do we know what range lions can smell a decaying carcass at? James, it depends very much on how decaying the carcass is. So is it just beginning its process of putrefaction, or is it actually already fairly rancid? And then the second thing to consider is the environmental conditions. How hot is it? How hot is it, and therefore how fast is it decaying? How much moisture is it and is there, and therefore how fast is it decaying? And so I would say at a maximum, I don't know why the figure of 8 kilometers is sticking in my mind, but I think it's probably roughly 8 kilometers or so, which is 5 miles. I think that's probably the outside maximum. All right, while we figure out what's going on in here, let's head back across to Byron and see what his plans for the short evening drive are.
Right, everyone, so we're driving around looking for chameleons, scorpions, anything nocturnal. I found something small though, just off to the left, a little scrub hare. There we go, off it goes. Where did it go? Just there, Brian, there we go. Beautiful little scrub hare. Now, some of you might be watching and saying, oh, it looks like a rabbit. It's not a rabbit, it is a hare. Now, one of the largest differences between hares and rabbits is that when rabbits are born, they are born altricial. Now, that term means that the rabbits are born helpless. So they do not have fur, their eyes are not open, and the mother has to look after them while they are still so young. So they are born completely helpless, and they are born altricial. That is what the term is. Now hares, however, when they are born precocial. Now precocial means they've got fur, their eyes are open, and they can move very, very soon after birth. And because generally the hares are born above ground and just in little thickets, so they do need to move for safety, whereas rabbits are born underground in warrens. That's the term known for a rabbit home. It's known as a warren. So that's the main difference between hares and rabbits. One of the main differences. There are a few other differences, but if you can just remember that precocial and altricial, then that's enough for the rabbits and the hares. Nice. I don't want to shine the lights on it for too long. Oh dear. It may end up staying out here, Brian. Alright, so let's see if we can find a chameleon, everybody. Marianne from Arkansas, you would like to know, if I'm guiding guests who don't speak English very well or don't speak English at all, how do I communicate what we are seeing and a lot of the information? So Marianne, usually what happens is I'll speak a lot slower, and usually I find most people that come on safari, even if they don't speak a lot of English, there'll probably be one person in the family that does speak a bit of English and can translate for the rest of the family. So all I do is speak a little bit slower, and I don't go into as much detail in terms of describing what we're seeing. There's no need to use too much scientific information, and that goes for every guest. It all depends on what the guests are looking for and what they are wanting to see and wanting to learn. Often I do enjoy guiding people and allowing them to ask questions, because then it gives me a good idea of what they are after and the depth of knowledge they do want to learn and find out about. Because I think a lot of the time, if you rattle off too much scientific information, it can get a bit lost on people when they are on safari. There's no need to go into too much detail, but it is important that we as guides have that information in case we do get asked the questions, so that we are able to answer them. But as I said, it generally depends on each guest, and if their English isn't great, I'll speak a lot slower and won't go into too much detail, purely speak about what we are seeing and what is happening. But I generally do that with most guests anyways. Purely interpret what we are actually viewing, unless they have got other questions about other behavior with the animals that we might be seeing. Just have a look here. Let's see if we can find a scorpion, everybody. No, nothing. Sure. Nothing just yet. I do think that if James finds a scorpion tonight, I might be a little bit upset. Maybe bruise my ego slightly. Actually, I won't mind. I'm just joking. It's always nice if one of us are able to find a chameleon or a scorpion, anything interesting to show you. Doesn't matter who finds it. I was hoping I'm just driving past a little waterhole just off to our left, and I was hoping that we'd hear some frogs, but no frogs calling tonight. And Sarah from Cape Town, all the way from Cape Town. Good evening to you, Sarah. You are saying you're coming up to Kruger in December, and you're staying in a rooftop tent, and you wanting to know if you are going to die of heat. Sarah, you're not going to die. You're just going to go home about 10 kilograms lighter because you are going to sweat profusely in the rooftop tent. So be prepared for that. You are going to get very, very hot. But I don't think you'll die. Just drink a lot of water, but you are probably going to go back much lighter than when you arrived. And I think that's exactly, I'm hoping that's what's happened to me. I think I've come out here to lose weight. You know, I'd like to look like my role model, James Hendry. James and his muscular physique. Let's head over to James and his muscular physique now and see what he's up to.
You know, some people, the less said about them, the better. There are the lions. They're just emerging now onto the road. The reason David and I came out onto the road was because that lioness there, who's lying there in relatively clean air, made a deposit that filled the entire Lowveld from Komatipoort in the deep southeast all the way up to Crook's Corner in the deep northeast, and then across to the Pafuri Gate and back down again to Skukuza and the Pretorius Kop, with a green cloud, the likes of which you cannot imagine the stink that came off it. So Dave and I had to extract, I'm afraid. Thankfully, the entire pride is now moving down the road. This is good news. Let us continue with them. Thank you, Graham. You say in a couple more months these cubs will be the same size as the lionesses. They won't, Graham. It's actually quite interesting. What they will do is only attain this size when they're about 2.5. They'll be the same height, and then they'll fill out a bit from there. But what you find is that they'll get to about a year old, and then it almost seems like they don't get any bigger for a long time, but they do slowly. Sorry about the flashing there of our virtual reality rig. I just want to wait and see what these lions are doing. They're clearly listening. They're clearly trying to figure out what's going on. And they will, if they decide to hunt, they will put these cubs, they'll stash them in some thick bush, and they'll go off on their own. You see, even this little fanning out session that they're doing now, they've got a plan, an unspoken idea of what to do. If Taylor was here, what to do would be to kill buffalo by the dozen. But I'm not sure what their plan is right now. So the one lioness off to the right-hand side, very close to where we are now. I'll put the light on there. There she is. all the cubs in the road up ahead of us, and then the rest moving down the road. Now this is what lions do, of course. They get up and they move, and then they decide they're just too tired and they lie down for a little bit, and slowly their metabolism speed up to the point that they get actually on with the business of hunting. Yeah, no, Roger, you're absolutely correct for about 50% of lions. You say, when the lionesses mate, will it be time for them to leave the pride? Lionesses don't leave the pride, they'll stay here, but the males, as soon as they hit puberty, they will then leave the pride. And so before they mate, the males will be tossed out by their fathers, but the females will stay. And so the Nkuhuma Pride, there are 8 cubs here, 5 of them females. The Nkuhuma Pride can very soon find itself with 10 lionesses hunting. And then if they all get mated, you can imagine how quickly a pride of lions can grow in the absence of some kind of, say, disease like the mange, or perhaps a trauma from an incoming male coalition, which will of course kill all the cubs under a year old. But you can imagine how quickly it would happen. And then suddenly you've got 20 lions in a pride. That's probably a bit big for this area, and it'll eventually split up. And I think I keep forgetting this, but the Nkuhuma Pride at its zenith, I think it was close on 20 lions at one stage. I think even more than that. I think it was 24 even. It went down to 5 not too long ago, and now it's back up to, well, if we include all the cubs, it's back up to 13. See them just moving so silently, you can't hear them moving in the slightest. Cat and cat tamper is a very easy question for me to answer from you. You say, which smells worse, lion dung or rotting carcass? Lion dung is rotting carcass that has been processed by the digestive system of a lion, and therefore it is like uber rotting carcass smell. It is much worse. It is the worst smell in the world. I'm going totally silently into the night as the call of the fiery-necked nightjar. I've always got to pause before I say fiery-necked nightjar. I'm not sure why that is the case. It's interesting to me that they're moving with the cubs. Let me just move these lights on there. They're a bit nicer than the other ones. Is that alright, David? So we'll just stay far behind this one. We don't want to cause them any kind of distress. They mustn't feel vaguely threatened by us. Now, Casey, you're in New York and you're wondering if the territories of lions and leopards overlap. Absolutely they do. Casey, they eat a different suite of food. They've got a completely different kind of trophic niche, we call it, which is a food niche. Yes, there's some overlap in that, but because there's very little overlap, I mean, leopards will eat things up to the size of an impala, and lions will eat things basically impala-sized and up, so much bigger prey, and therefore they're not actually direct competitors, although they will kill each other's youngsters if they can. One of the lionesses is off to the side there, Dave. She's obviously decided that there might be worth pursuing a bit of a fanned out arrangement. She's now then laying down, of course. So Casey, yes, that's exactly what happens. And look, the dominant male leopard in this area you've spent most of the afternoon with, that's Tingana. He's a 9, close to 10-year-old male in his prime. And then the male lions of the area, which have a much bigger territory than Tingana's, probably about 3 times the size of Tingana's, they will encompass his territory, all of these 2 or 3 lion pride territories, and then the territories of the females too. I'm just going to stop here because the cubs have stopped moving for some reason on the road. They're going completely quiet. I'm just going to be quiet, just see what you can hear. I'm sorry about that aerial. Sorry, David. Let me move the car very slightly. Get that out of the way. And there we are. If Graham Wallington sees an aerial in a shot, everybody, he gets he's very upset indeed. It's the only time I've seen him upset. Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to turn the light off because the cubs are being a little bit too fascinated by it, and I don't want them to be, sorry about this Dave, I'm going to have to kill it. I don't want them to be fascinated by the light simply because I want them to follow their mothers if they want them to, and so we're just going to turn off and sit for a little while. I can still vaguely see them there. I'll tell you what, I'll just put my little bit of torchlight on them, and then that won't make too much difference. Alright, in the meantime, Byron has managed to find himself a little creature of the night. Let's go and find out what it is.
Yes, everybody, look what we have found, and it was actually Brian who spotted it. Not me, I'm not going to take credit for it. A chameleon, look at that. Right there, can you see everyone? Look at the shape of the back. Its head is actually just hiding behind the leaves, but I'm sure you can see it very clearly. A little flap-necked chameleon, and they do have a flap behind the neck, and that is where they get the name from. Look at that. I'm going to see if I don't know if I move back a little bit. Brian, what do you think for a better view?
Maybe try forward.
Maybe forward. Okay, let me see everybody. Let's try keep an eye on it. Hang on. A few more leaves there. It's just there. Can you see that, everybody? Hang on. Oh dear. I think back, Brian. I don't think forward. Hang on. Maybe through there. Hang on. I want to try show you his head so you can see him clearly. Let's have a look there now, Brian. I think just over there. Just every time behind a little branch. Very difficult to see him, but what a spot. And it's a slightly different green, everybody. And the shape of the, compared to the leaves, is slightly different. Maybe through there, I think. That's our best view, and I think. There, just there. There we go. Sue, you asked what type of light we use at night. We don't use black light. We use a yellow spotlight. And all we do is we do look for the reflection of eyes of nocturnal animals. The chameleons don't give off any reflection, but they do appear to be a little bit different in color, as we said, in the shape. They do stand out a little bit, but this was an incredible spot from Brian. And he did see it just in that little thick part of the tree. They're slightly lighter color green, but it's not easy to spot these animals, these little creatures, the little flap-necked chameleons. We'll probably will start seeing more as the year goes on, and the reason for that is when we get more rain, they'll start becoming a bit more active because there'll be more insects around. But what a wonderful little sighting of a flap-necked chameleon, and they are incredible. You can actually see the legs. Kat, you were saying when you left South Africa, you actually left a bit heavier because the food is so amazing. Especially when you come on these safaris, you get fed and fed and fed, and the food is fantastic, and you're not as active because you're sitting on the vehicles all the time. And yes, but I think if you're going camping and you are catering for yourself, it's a bit different, and especially lying in a tent for most of the day or in the evenings, you're probably going to sweat a lot in December. So that should help for weight loss, perhaps. I don't know. But everybody, thank you so much from myself and from Brian and the thumb, the flame thumb for today because of the heat. Can you see? There we go. Look at that. Yeah. And we will see you all tomorrow morning again on our sunrise safari. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to head back to James. He's going to end the show with you. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world. Good night and goodbye.
I told you the cloud that the lion had made was green, and you can see that I have turned green. The lions have turned green. In fact, everything around us has turned green. Now, it is green, of course, not because the lion made a dreadful smell, but because we are now in infrared for 2 minutes. Anyway, we just thought this was the most sensitive way to look at the lions. In actual fact, we didn't remember we had infrared until Louise said that we did, and we do. And so now we're using it. And we just wanted to see if they weren't going to do a little bit of hunting. But instead, they are asleep. And I must just remind you, while we watch these lionesses doing nothing at all, that the best question of the day, we should actually have a question of the day competition. But the best question of the day came from a viewer this morning after hearing Louise's slightly sort of robotic voice. She doesn't have a robotic voice, but when it comes through the radio, it sounds robotic. Asked if Louise was an app. Like Siri, I assume. I don't know if the viewer was being serious. Regardless, it was extremely amusing. And so that wonderful question, is Louise Pavid an app, gets question of the day for this Sunday, the 6th of November, 2016. Have one last look at the lions. And it was Jason. Thank you, Jason. Hello, Nut. You're in... Nut is in Norway. Hello, Nut. That's, I don't know why I think that's funny. Nut in Norway. You say this, you've just found the stream and you think it's wonderful. Well, Nut, thank you for joining us from Norway, and thank you especially. Look at the lions coming together now. It's going to bond a little bit. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sending us a question, and I hope that you will be with us for a long time to come. You can watch these little cubs growing up. You can watch the cubs or the lionesses produce more cubs. You can watch them hunting and their stories, and the like to sort of use the cliche, triumphs and tragedies will unfold over the days and years. So please do keep joining us. Thank you, everybody, for your efforts today, for joining us. It's been wonderful having you with us. We're going to say goodbye to you now. A big thank you to David on camera. David, well done. A big thank you to Louise Pavid, the greatest app in the world in Final Control, along with her programmer, Kirsten Max Smith, and, of course, to Byron, he who doesn't speak English, and Brian. We'll see